treatment is going to affect the mechanical properties or how it is going to modify the microstructure. And before we go to that topic, there was a question in the last session regarding the way in which we melt the samples, that is the hat style. We'll quickly see onto that and then we'll go into the thermal treatment. So initially what we saw in the last lecture was in the first lecture basically it was that during a additive manufacturing process like SLM or E-beam or direct energy deposition like the direct energy DED or lens, there is a possibility that we can choose how we want to melt the material or how we want to melt the powder bed. Generally, what people normally use is if you have a powder bed, the energy source will always melt in a straight line fashion and there's a trend to continue the same way throughout the entire powder bed. This is the normal fashion which is being used, and the melting direction between two melting sequence is going to be more or less or is the same generally. You have to have multiple melting sequence within the layer because the energy source whatever you are going to use has a limited area. For instance, if you are using a laser in a selective laser melting process, the focal distance of the laser is going to be approximately around 80 to 120 micrometer. So if you want to melt an area in millimeter size or in meter size, you want to have several melting sequences. The same is true for an electron beam melting process where the focal distance will be around 120 to 150. It is slightly larger than that of the laser melting process. So in order to melt a layer which is of micrometers, a millimeter size or a meter size in dimensions, you need to undergo several melting sequence within each layer, and this will be in turn dictated by the CAD data which you have already fed to the computer. So the way in which you melt the samples is generally defined as hatches, and the way in which you arrange the hatches within and between the layers is known as a hat style. This is very important because this will affect a lot of properties within the material, both physical properties, mechanical properties, and even other properties to extent. For example, whenever people use additive manufacturing process, in the first layer you will have a melting sequence in a general case like this, the single melt hat style, whatever is shown here, or single melt hat strategy. And the second layer, you'll have the same single melt style, but it is rotated to certain degrees. Generally, the rotation is between 67 to 74 degrees. This is found out that if you are rotating each melting sequence to a angle of 67 to 74 degree, this is where you are going to have least number of repetitions in the melting sequence that coincides the same melting sequence if you are going to build a very big or a sample of very big dimensions. So if you are going to have minimum repetitions, it means that it is going to have the least number of porosity that is anticipated. So you try to rotate the melting sequence between 60 to 70 degrees, 67 to 74 degrees between two layers. This apart. Apart from having just a simple melting sequence like this, a single melt hat strategy, people also slowly started to modify the hat strategy melting sequences where they went for double melting where the same layer is melted twice. In the first time, it may be similar to single melting. The second melting, the same surface is melted to a second time in a different melting or a different hairstyle, whether it's the same single melt hairstyle with certain angle of rotation or a single melt hairstyle without any rotation, or you can vary as per your needs. Then people went for single melt continuous. It is very similar to single melt hairstyle, except the directionality between two melting sequences is going to be opposite and it is going to be continuous. So this has its own advantage and disadvantage compared to single melt hairstyle. And the most complicated of those strategies which people used was is known as a checkerboard hair strategy or a chessboard hair strategy, where you split the entire area into several small islands and each island is melted in different sequences. For instance, you can see a figure here where you have nearly 12 islands and there are some small portions which are not highlighted here. Considering these 12 islands are going to be melted, we have an option that we can melt the individual island in the any sequence we wish. For instance, first before we go into um, sequence, we just say that within each island you will follow different hairstyle. You can follow the same hairstyle or a different hairstyle. For example, you can see that you have a single melt hairstyle, but then there is an angle between two melting sequence which is almost 90 degree. And if you are going to go to the next layer, probably you have a rotation of 67 degree or 74 degree or even 90 degree between two layers, and each single melt will have that kind of rotation between two layers. Apart from that, each island can be melted in a different fashion you wish. For example, in the first case you are melting this portion first, then you jump to this here, then you jump to this island, then you melt the island which is isolated here, then you go to an island here. You try to make it in such a way that you don't melt two islands adjacent to each other at the same time. This is because if you are going to melt two islands adjacent to each other at the same time, then this will be more like the single melt hash strategy and there will be no difference in terms of certain properties. But if you are going to melt the sample in a different way, in such a way that no two adjacent islands are melted at the same time or continuously. For instance, you can see here you have the first melting here, second melting is here, third melting, fourth melting. So they are spread apart. Or you can go from one here. This is absolutely your wish how you melt, but try to make sure that you don't melt two adjacent islands at the same time. This is industrially helpful because this can reduce the amount of internal stresses in the material. If you reduce the amount of internal stresses in the material, sometimes the internal stresses may lead to some kind of distortion in the material, and the distortion in the material can be relatively minimized. At the same time, it also has some influence with the microstructure of the material, and hence it also determines the mechanical properties of the material. So just by changing the hairstyle, you have a whole lot of differences in terms of microstructure and the mechanical properties. And the other hairstyle which I have not shown here is called Gusset hairstyle. For example, if you have a area here like this and you want to melt the whole area, you start with the center. It can be square or it can be in a circular form. Then you go with the next. Then you have the third layer. Then you go with the fourth layer. Go with the fifth layer and so on. You go keep on going. It is more like an onion pattern, but in a square form. You keep on increasing the width every time. Then you go with the next melting and so on. You can also use the same thing in the circular form. For example, if you are going here, let's say you can also have it in the circular form. Anyway, it is more like an onion ring pattern. So every pattern is designed in such a way that it has some influence on the microstructure and in turn the mechanical properties. With this, we move on to the case study of aluminum silicon, where we try to introduce some thermal concepts, or we try to see the influence of thermal behavior on the SLM produced parts. I assume most of you are aware of phase diagrams, so I'm not going into detail of the phase diagram. I just wanted to show we are going to use aluminum 12 silicon. So it is somewhere here. Sorry, there's a mistake here. This is aluminum 12 silicon. It should be your hypo-eutectic decomposition, not eutectic decomposition. So this is somewhere late next to. So you are in this left of the eutectic regime. So this is known as hypo-eutectic. T U T. Okay, this is hypo-eutectic decomposition. So it means that the microstructure should have some. This is aluminum silicon. So the microstructure should have some aluminum plus the eutectic of aluminum plus silicon. I'll show you the microstructure in a while. We chose this system because it has just two elements, aluminum and silicon, and it does not combine together to form a uh, solution. So it means you have the solvent and the solute, they remain stable, they do not combine to form a single solution, or they do not react to form a single solution, but you have aluminum and silicon remain separated within the system. And the morphology of the silicon and the distribution of the silicon in the aluminum silicon system is going to define your uh, mechanical properties. For instance, in aluminum 12 silicon cast cell. Okay, before going to the uh, microstructure, I want to highlight one more thing here, that any additive manufactured material, any additive metal additive manufactured sample, if you see the microstructure of the sample, you will not find the same features everywhere, and hence there is an anisotropy, which is opposite to isotropy. For instance, if a material is said to be isotropic, it means everywhere, wherever you see within the material, it should show similar composition, it should have similar microstructure, and it should exhibit similar properties, be it be mechanical, be it be thermal, be it be optical, and so on. But the sample surface is, when you see the microstructure of the sample surface, it is going to be highly isotropic. This anisotropic nature of the microstructure is unique in terms of self-days and melting. In addition, the anisotropy in the microstructure spans over several length scales, right from nanoregime, submicroregime, microregime, and macroregime. So the anisotropy in the macroregime is seen here. So when you see the top of the sample, you always see the top view. In the top view, you always see the way in which the laser has melt the powder bed. That is the melt tracks. For instance, one of the melt tracks is other melt pan. You can see it from the image here that the melting sequence is each parallel lines. They are considered to be the melting sequence. Of course, you can see these parallel lines depending upon the hairstyle you use. This is single melt hairstyle, so you have all the lines parallel to each other. Similarly, if you see on the side of the sample, or let's say if you see on the front face of the sample, you always have the sequence. From this information, you know how many melting sequences you will be able to, how many or the dimensions of the melting sequence can be appreciated from the width of the substrate plate. On the side view, you also see some kind of melt pool characteristics, but the melt it cannot give the accurate dimensions of the kinetics. So you have an anisotropy in the macro scale because your macrostructure is non-uniform, and at the same time you also combine the macrostructure with the some of the macrostructure features. We will see that relatively shortly. But real microstructure of aluminum 12 sample is shown here. The aluminum, there are two different images shown here. One is the actual image of aluminum 12 silicon sample produced by conventional casting process. The other is the microstructure of aluminum 12 sample produced by selective laser melting process. So you have a, as I suggested before, there will be always a difference in the length scale, especially for additive manufactured sample, and this difference in the length scale is going to impart anisotropy in the material, both in terms of microstructure and in terms of properties. So if you see the cast sample, you see a typical hypoeutectic microstructure. Hypo, because this lies onto the left of the eutectic composition. Eutectic. Hypoeutectic microstructure. Of course, if you're not aware what a eutectic reaction is, eutectic reaction is an invariant reaction. It means it happens at a fixed temperature and fixed composition. And a eutectic reaction is the one where a liquid giving rise to two solid, solid 1 plus solid 2 at particular temperature and particular composition. So L is a reversible reaction gives rise to L1, sorry, S1 plus S2. So L giving rise to a reversible at particular temperature, particular composition. S1, for example, we say that 750 degrees centigrade, or we can put like this. We say that at 12.6 percentage at 577 degrees centigrade, this eutectic reaction is supposed to happen at 12.6 degrees centigrade. You will have one liquid giving rise to one solid. Yes, it is eutectic. This is origin of aluminum and silicon. So when it goes to hypoeutectic composition, you will have solid one which is pure aluminum plus solid 2 which is aluminum plus silicon. So this is the typical eutectic reaction. And because of this eutectic reaction, you have the microstructure aluminum plus aluminum plus silicon eutectic. What you see here in this image, or precisely in this microstructure, you have both aluminum, which is because of hypo-eutectic regime, plus the eutectic, which is aluminum plus these are aluminum. The areas which are relatively bright. For example, in this something like something like this. This is going to be your aluminum. And the mixture if you zoom in here, it is hard to see, but if you zoom in here, you will have a mixture of both bright and dark region, which is aluminum plus silicon. And you can see the scale bar here, which is range of 25 micrometer scale bar. But when you process the same sample under additive manufacturing or selective laser melting, you see at this magnification you don't see any microstructure except the laser hairstyle or how you have melted. This is very similar to the figure which you have seen here, where you have the laser melting. So this is the top surface of the material, and you zoom in further. You take a boundary here, very. If you zoom in certain regions here, you will see some kind of difference in the picture. There are some coarse features observed here, and there are some fine features observed in the core. If further zoom in, you can see the coarse feature along the boundaries which is observed here, which is uh, more rich in silicon than aluminum. So you zoom in further in the core. So you can divide this distinguish into core and shell. The shell, let me put it here. This should be the core. Core, and this should be the in terms of shell or the boundaries. Let's call it boundaries. So you have the core and the boundaries. And in the core, you will have a relatively uniform microstructure. And this uniform microstructure consists of the presence of aluminum and silicon. And if you make a EDAX analysis, you can deconvolute the presence of aluminum and silicon one over the other. It can be seen that all the boundaries here are rich in silicon and the interior cells are rich in aluminum. This is a very peculiar kind of microstructure that you will get only with selective laser melting process. And when you see the mechanical properties, the cast sample has a tensile strength of around 200 megapascal. Yes. Yield strength is also not so high, which is nearly, let's say, 100 megapascal around. And ductility is around 10 percentage for the cast sample. But this is 200. When you take the same sample produced by additive manufacturing, you see the yield strength increases twice, the ultimate strength increases the yield strength increases 4 times, the ultimate strength increases twice, and the ductility is reduced 3 times. There are several metallurgical reasons behind it. I'm not going into these metallurgical reasons, but I just wanted to say that the properties of the material generally produced by selective laser melting process is superior to the cast material, but it did not have to be the same for selective laser electron beam melting. But for direct energy deposition also, whatever we see here can be applied, that it may have slightly superior properties than the cast material. And one more important aspect we have to see is the anisotropy. We saw that the microstructure is not going to be uniform and it's going to be different along the different length scales. If the microstructure is going to be different along different length scales, you will have a kind of anisotropy. It means the mechanical properties are also going to be different along different length scales. This is very important. So people have tried to check the isotropic nature of the material and they have tried to do different sets of experiments. But the most interesting thing I'm showing here is through hardness measurement. You might have already known how to measure the hardness of a material. So it is the resistance to deformation or resistance to indentation, however we can call it. So people have tried here with nano indentation, nano hardness. So you use a nano indenter and try to measure the hardness. There are several points where they try to measure the hardness and they map the whole area, and you can see the hardness is not uniform. Depending upon the changes in the color, the hardness is changing, and you can see there is this kind of anisotropy. The hardness does not remain uniform throughout the surface of the material. So if the hardness is not uniform, it varies according to the microstructure. But when you check the tensile properties, we have measured several tensile specimens. Every specimen you have very similar yield strength, very similar ultimate strength, and the ductility. It means that even though the microstructure shows anisotropy, the mechanical properties at local scale also show anisotropy, but the bulk properties of the material is going to be rather uniform. This is what is illustrated. I'm not going to uniform. So when you thermally treat some materials where you already know that there is some kind of anisotropy, but the bulk properties are more or less uniform, you can see that aluminum silicon, if you heat treat the material at different temperatures at constant time 6 hours, you can see the microstructure is slowly changing from aluminum silicon submicron microstructure to aluminum silicon in the micron scale microstructure, where you can see here the silicon is no more a continuous skeletal network like what you see here. Here the silicon is the form of continuous skeletal network. But in the other case, you don't see silicon as a continuous skeletal network, but as a individual particles. The size and the number of silicon particles grow over time can be measured and can be tabulated, but I'm not going there. Just wanted to show that with thermal treatment, the microstructure is going to completely change from kind of submicron microstructure to micron size microstructure. Since we are thermally treating it and the microstructure is changing from submicron size, from nano size to or submicron size to micron size, it will have an influence on the mechanical properties. So whenever you treat a material thermally, you are going to degrade the mechanical properties of the material. For instance, here you can see the tensile test made for the aluminum silicon sample produced by selective laser melting, which has the best properties, which we have already seen here. That the yield strength is around 240 megapascal. The ultimate strength is around 385 or 400 megapascal, but the ductility is reduced to 3 to 4%. The same thing you can see here For the half prepared sample, the yield strength is quite high, the ultimate strength is quite high, and the ductility is reduced to 3 to 4 percentage. But when you thermally treat the sample, or when you anneal the sample, or when you supply thermal energy to the sample, the microstructure is getting relaxed. The microstructure is also changing from one length scale to transferring from one length scale to the other length scale, and the silicon morphology is also changing from a continuous skeletal network to individual particle shaped microstructure. So what happens when you don't have a continuous skeleton network? When you have isolated silicon, the strength is going to be reduced. As the strength is going to get reduced, the strength and ductility are normally opposite in nature, so that as the strength is reduced, the ductility of the material can be improved to a certain extent. Here you can see with increasing heat treatment temperature at constant heat treatment time, the strength of the material decreases gradually, but the ductility of the material increases more increases significantly. For example, at 473 Kelvin, or sorry, 723 Kelvin, that is 473 degrees centigrade, you have nearly 25% ductility for a 25% ductility for a hypoiodic decomposition, which is quite phenomenal. Of course, all these changes in the mechanical properties is based on the microstructure, and these are all based on the metallurgical phenomena that is going place, which I'm not going in detail here, but I just wanted to highlight again that the continuous network skeletal network of silicon in the submicron regime, that is around 200 nanometer width, continuous silicon is broken down into composite like microstructure. That's why you have a degradation in the property. But I want to highlight one more thing here, that whenever you use an additive manufacturing process, or whenever you use metal additive manufacturing for manufacturing any component using metal additive manufacturing, there is a possibility that you can tune the mechanical properties of the material in situ in a whole different way. For instance, not all the universities, so not all the research groups are working on such direction, but we found out that the mechanical property of a material is not going to be constant. For instance, if you take any material, for example, aluminum, if you are going to produce aluminum by casting, you always know that the cast aluminum will have certain degree of strength, certain degree of hardness, certain degree of toughness, certain degree of roughness. Fine. But if you assume you are going to produce the same material using metal additive manufacturing methodology, you cannot just rely on either the heat treatment process, or you cannot just rely on the conventional methodologies to improve the hardness of the material, like grain boundary strength, but different strengthening mechanisms, which you may have come across or you will come across sooner. Here, what happens is, even if you are going to heat it, you are going to lose the strength. Even if you are going to do anything during the method wrong, you have to repeat the whole experiment. But here, what I want to highlight is, there is a possibility that you will be able to modify the properties of the material depending upon processing conditions, depending upon, if possible, generous, generous funding, where you can see that you can modify the properties can be changed by several ways. One way, you can modify the melting sequence or the hat style, which we see here. If you modify the melting sequence, you are already modifying the microstructure, you are already modifying the mechanical property. This is because we have seen already that when you modify the microstructure, you will be able to modify the way in which you can deposit the elements. For example, even if you take aluminum silicon, maybe you will find a different permutation and combination in which the silicon is deposited, in which the aluminum is deposited, and based on that, you will be able to decide whether you need a invent operation or not. Similarly, there are other ways one can also modify the mechanical properties by changing the Harden or by changing the way in which it gives a higher cooling rate. For example, we try to make the cooling rate slightly slower. That is by employing the double melting process. On the other hand, if you are altering the cooling rate, not only the strength but also ductility of the material. But this is very unique because this but the metal additive manufacturing is the only kind of process where you will be able to modify the mechanical properties directly during production. Is device the odd falls that the mechanical properties of certain materials are constant to, because you can see for aluminum silicon we have nearly 30 different mechanical properties, 30 different combination of toughness and the ductility. For example, we are not worried about ductility, we are worried about the strength. Then also you will be able to improve the strength of the material. But if you are worried about the ductility and not strength of the material, it is also possible to modify just the ductility of the material. But if you want to modify both the strength and ductility at the same time, that is also possible within certain experimental limits. So I would like to summarize by saying two or three things. First thing is the material properties of the material produced by selective laser melting process is not a constant. There is a possibility that India can alter both the mechanical properties such as strength and ductility of the material without much difficulty. With this, I would like to summarize here that in general, any thermal treatment you supply to the additively manufactured component, metal additively manufactured component would generally reduce the strength and increase the ductility of the material, excepting the processing of use the ceramics. Since all the metallurgy manufacturing process cannot be used for ceramics, so with this, I would like to summarize, and I would like to know if you have any questions. And in the afternoon, we will see something about the something about the post processing, including some touches of heat treatment and other post processing, and slightly see some process differences in terms of microstructure and post processing between laser and electron beam melting. Yeah, with this I would like to summarize here. So if you have any questions, let me know.
Thank you, sir. Students, if you have any question, you can ask or you can post in chat. So the entire presentation is about like after printing what to do and that what
So here it's not about what to do, but it's more about how to expect the properties and how the thermal treatment may influence the properties. Let's put it that way.
so we have advantage in terms of complex printing in additive, and apart
Yeah,
from that we also have a tailored property
yeah.
which you
You
can
can tailor the properties to certain extent.
so that
Yes.
is another critical advantage of
Yeah.
yes any question
Okay. If there are no questions, then we will see each other in the afternoon. Then.
okay sir
Yeah.
thank you
Okay.
very much
Thank you.
we start in afternoon sir. Bye.
Afternoon. Yeah.